Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we got Cletus Coffey in the house today. Thank you so much for tuning in, by the way. Cletus is a personal development coach for men and for men in business and for entrepreneurs in business. And so Cletus has a unique story because Cletus was a professional athlete, still is an athlete, but played professional football first in Canada and then the US. And before I talk more, I'll let Cletus take it away and give us a little bit about his background, and then we'll get to what he's doing now, how he empowers men that may just need help finding their path and finding a way to live in alignment with their goals, with their values, and with their belief systems. Cletus, take it away. Tell us a little bit about you. Thanks for being here, by the way.
First of all, brother, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. I've just from the moment I met you 2 years ago now,
Right.
I've always loved your energy and your passion for what you do in life and people in general. So
Thank
I'm
you.
grateful to join you on the show here
I'll
today.
take that. That's making my Saturday amazing. No, thank you. Seriously, bro.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, our journey to here, like most men, as a young man thinking, as an athlete, like my world as an athlete, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, 2-sport athlete in college. It was just a hockey stick of success for me. There's no way this could ever come down.
Okay.
And as we all know, life has a real interesting way of backhanding us and to straighten us out and realize that, look, it's not all going to be the hockey stick. For you the lessons that you need to learn to get to where you want to be is not going to be a hockey stick of success. And so what's happened since then is, various peaks and valleys, but each one, and something I learned early on in sports, but didn't really get till 20 years after, is in sport, you either win or you learn. And the challenge is the scoreboard.
I like that.
The scoreboard tells us that we're losers, that we lost.
Right.
But what I've learned is that the scoreboard, all it is just feedback.
Sure.
And yes, in sport, you got to know who wins, to get the standings, who goes to the championship. But the reality is it's just feedback on how we're doing. And that scoreboard mentality I brought into my life after sports, and it suffocated me. It held me back as a man, as an entrepreneur, as a partner, as a father, because like most men, I was so focused on achieving and accomplishing in life on the scoreboard. How much money I could make, what career trajectory I could have, getting into a relationship, and how much sex I could have each week, and being the best father. I'm going to attend every game and every practice. And that scoreboard.
It's a lot of pressure. Sounds like a recipe for burnout.
And believe me, it hits. And it hits hard, man.
Yeah.
It's called the snapback.
Right.
Because I feel like when we go in this one direction, especially as men, to succeed in one area like mostly business and finances and career, if we forget about everything else, it's like an anchor. It's holding us back. And it's going to snap back at some point. And mine sure did.
Well, the thing is, we all have to eat, right? We all have to eat. But the question is, how are we going to make that happen? And from what I know about you, you really do have an interesting trajectory from going from an athlete to finding your way to living within the framework that society expected of you, and you playing to that, and then not being well or not feeling happy, like feeling distraught, And so I think that's interesting. So let's dive a little bit into that. In the early 90s, 2000s, you played professional football in Canada, then in the US. And maybe tell us one or two things about that, about the experience and how that led you to the next step and why you actually stopped playing.
Yeah, so I did not go to a big college here in the US by any means. I went to a small school, and it's my senior year in college, and I don't know if it was just my desperation of needing another season because I didn't know anything else, or was it truly my desire to go be a professional athlete? It was probably a little bit of both.
Right.
Nonetheless, and to date myself here a little bit, late 90s, email was just becoming a thing. So It's not like I could email programs. I had to make a VHS tape, hundreds of them, and I sent them to every single NFL team, Canadian football team, arena football team, and then there was an upstart of the XFL at that time. Jobs were out there.
Okay.
And so I was every other day, I'm at the U.S. Post Office sending out VHS tapes.
Oh, that's wild.
I got two callbacks, man. It was great.
How many tapes did you send?
If
you were to guess?
I would probably say 150 VHS tapes.
150 tapes, 2 answers.
2 answers. All it takes is one, right?
Right.
So Saskatchewan Roughriders in the Canadian Football League signed me, and this little team in the Arena Football League was an indoor league that was growing at that time. And ESPN was just jumping in and getting their broadcasting rights, and so it was money was starting to flow into the league, and so it was kind of the heyday of that league, and it was a nice time to be in there. Anyway, go to Canada, and it was just amazing. Just knowing I belong here.
Right.
But like anything at that level, it's a business.
It is a business.
And I got cut for the first time in my life in any sport. I had never not started on a team, let alone been cut.
Okay.
I got cut, and then it immediately was, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? So luckily, I caught on in Arena League, played 4 years in Arena Football League, and like most athletes, our career ends not, unless you're Tom Brady,
right.
Our careers don't end on our terms. Right. It's either when the sport doesn't watch anymore, you get injured, and sure enough, I got injured, and at going on 28 years of age, like, that's it. My window was closed.
Okay, so at 28, you got injured, that's it.
That's it.
Okay, now what?
That's a great question. And that was a question I asked, now what?
Right.
What do I do now? And it's not like we made a bunch of money that I could just sit back and figure it out, retire, or kind of sort my way out. Like, I needed a job.
Surprisingly, I don't think that's the reality for even the majority of football players, that they can just say, hey, we retire now. Because when you read the statistics, oftentimes from what I've seen is that north of 80% of American football players within 5 years after the end of their career, they deal with a lot of physical issues. They deal with bankruptcy, or like financial issues. They deal with marital issues. So it's not the good life that we think they may have, right?
Absolutely. You're spot on. And I am in that majority of those that didn't make a whole lot of money and didn't have a solid foundation and needed to go create and build. The challenge was my resume said degree, football player. And I'm going on 28 years of age.
And I'm sure the doors were wide open. You had jobs flooding in, and everybody wanted a piece of the boy, right?
So we're talking, I retire in 01, and you're coming off the .com crash, and tech companies that had all these jobs, and and I have friends of mine that were working at Microsoft and this new company called Amazon, and they're getting stock options and all this thing, and I'm going, I don't have anything, I got nothing. And I applied to all those jobs, didn't get it.
Sure.
And so I ended up working for a parking company.
Okay.
And
here in the U.S.?
Here in the U.S., yep, in Seattle.
Right.
And it was really the only thing I could get at that time. And although I'm super grateful for it, and it was an amazing opportunity, I went from people calling me going, hey man, I saw you on ESPN. Hey, can I get tickets to the next game? Hey, how's it going? How's the game going? How you feeling?
The crew, the entourage.
The crickets. Like there was no calls anymore.
Sure.
And no one was calling me going, hey, how is it parking those cars these days? Like how? And so my whole self-worth, I didn't feel good. I was feeling down in this mentality of like, is this what it's come to? I'm used to being up here, and now I'm down here, and
and let's be honest, like selling parking spaces is not the most glossy and glamorous, sexy job, right? Wouldn't you say?
It was not.
I mean, we can be grateful to have a job, but if you're coming from here, if you landed on the moon, and you're now flipping burgers at McDonald's, I'm just making this up, but I can really sense that must have. How did that make you feel?
Well, I tell you. There's fantastic people in the industry and fantastic people I worked with, but the challenge was there was something missing. I knew I had a fire in me, but there was something missing.
Right.
And it took me a decade to really get my head around what the heck that was. And it took not only losing, my own self, like who the heck am I? If not an athlete, who am I?
Right.
And what I did was I just started following what society told me to do. Okay. So I got the job, I bought the house, I got the woman, I got married, I started rebuilding the house to have some equity in it, just doing what I thought every other man was doing and should be doing. And yet, what was in that equation did not include me, because I didn't know who the heck I was. I was just doing external actions and activities I thought a man in society should be doing. Yet
Well,
I was not included in it. My happiness, my fulfillment, my sense of worth and meaning was not involved in that process.
Well, I mean, it's such a challenging transition, what you said. You know, college, then on your resume is football player, and then what? So now the first best job that you're able to get is essentially selling parking spaces. And how did you mosey away from that, right? Like, what did you learn about yourself, and how did you get out of that?
Yeah. Well, there was an initial penultimate step to that really set my trajectory, and that was I got my first taste of entrepreneurship. And I got introduced to the world of finance and lending.
Understood.
So I started in the commercial lending to, office buildings and so forth. Then I got into the heyday of residential lending.
That's still I would say that's a sales job, right?
Oh, sales. Absolutely.
That's oftentimes what we see with athletes, do sell, or, like there's maybe one or two other doors that are open, but typically speaking sales, right?
Yeah.
Because we're thinking we're used to grinding and to performing and
working on teams. You can set goals, you can knock them down. Sales loves athletes,
right,
in that regard.
How was that for you though?
Yeah, I struggled with it a lot, and primarily because I didn't like the paperwork. I didn't like the day-to-day operations. I didn't like the hustle, trying to network with real estate and escrow and all these wonderful people in that industry. It just didn't. Again, something was missing.
But you're drumming up business. You're trying to make a name for yourself. Yep. Especially, you said you had your own mortgage lending business. Then after you switched so you were a commercial real estate lender. And you went to becoming a residential lender with your own business. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. So what I did was I just started looking at who's making the money here. And I'm working within banks, and I'm seeing the people that run the organization, and realizing that they're making all the money here. I want to make the money. So I started my own business, thinking that I'm going to go in and be at the top dog.
Sure.
The challenge was I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't know any business owners. I had never been one. I had no mentors. I had nothing. Which is my MO. Like I'll take the risk. I'll jump in and go, regardless of having to. I'm not going to sit down and paralyze myself and try to figure it out. Like I'll go and figure it out along the way. What I figured in that process, number one, is, shoot, I don't like this, and it's wearing me down. I don't know what to do. I'm a terrible business owner, and then the market crashes, 08, 09.
Yeah, so it had like a double, triple whammy against you.
Right.
And we talked about alignment before, and I feel like when you're out of alignment, everything becomes hard, right? When you notice, well, maybe these are not the business partners or suppliers I like to network with. The paperwork is just drowning me, because maybe I live more in the big picture than in the minutia of being the best at being detail oriented, right? And so that's difficult. Like, how did you then financially transition out of that? Because when you're an employee, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks, right, here in America. But as a business owner, that's a little bit different. First of all, you need to fund your business, to do your marketing and all that stuff. So how did you realized you did it, okay, it's not for me. How did you get out of that?
Yeah, so I tell you what, that is probably one of the greatest gifts that I got, was getting out of that business. That economic crash, although I was in a fetal position for a good solid week afterwards, was a greatest blessing to me, because I wanted out of that. It just was not for me. And I mean, had that crash not happened, I don't know, who knows, I may still be in it today and hating it and not enjoying my life. So that was a blessing in disguise.
I can see that.
The challenge was the financial jobs were, all these banks were closing. There wasn't a whole lot of jobs that I could just go, okay, now I'm just going to go back to selling at a bank somewhere.
Right.
Those jobs were gone.
Absolutely.
And so I'm hustling, and I'm being an athlete. I started training high school kids just on speed, agility, like just trying to hustle, trying to find some
So you went
cash.
to high schools and helped out, coached kids.
Yep, doing camps.
That's probably more fun, but not that much money, right?
No, it's not. And so I'm married at the time.
Okay.
And so my wife at the time had a pretty solid job.
Mm-hmm.
She was making good money. And now I'm relying on her to help support us during this hard time.
Right.
And I'm not carrying my weight, which brings a whole lot of shame and guilt. And so now I'm in this role of, we got 2 boys at the time, so I'm hustling the kids to school and I'm picking them up for practice. I'm taking on this more feminine role, and there's no, I know so
Traditionally
many men,
more feminine.
traditionally.
Yeah.
And whereas my wife at the time is taking on more masculine roles, she's taking on extra jobs and shifts and trying to get money in the door.
That's difficult, right?
It's difficult, and it created tension in us because
she didn't want that, and
she didn't want it, and I didn't want that. So
Right.
that creates a strain on the relationship in that regard.
Right.
And that sets us a tone, but also some dominoes started following, following at that time.
Yeah.
So my business is, I can't find a job. She's a lot of pressures on her. I'm hustling with the kids. Dynamic is off. The energy is off. The masculine, feminine energy is off. And so we're sitting in that, and I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to, hey, sweetheart, I'm lost. I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. She's looking at me going, you need to make some money. You need to go find a job. And I'm applying at Home Depot. I'm applying at the local surf shop. I'm just all these different places trying to find, I'm not getting jobs. And instead of just settling
I
in,
want to pause for a moment because that's such a difficult reality to live with. You're applying for jobs that are not below you, but below your caliber of education and below, like the things that you can bring to a business. And these jobs at a local surf shop, they're probably paid less than $20 an hour.
Yep.
Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely.
And you couldn't even get that, right?
Couldn't get it. Yeah.
So if I were to guess, that was mentally not the easiest place to be.
It was not.
Did you ever deal with depression going through that at all?
Yeah, looking back on it, I definitely did. And what I did is I found an escape from it, from my unwillingness to be able to get connected to the truth. The truth was I was depressed, that I was lost, afraid to communicate, afraid to ask for help, just so lost in my own self that I didn't turn to alcohol. I didn't turn to drugs.
Thank God not.
A lot of the common self-defeating
Right.
devices out there. I turned to running.
Okay, at least that's a healthy habit.
It was a healthy habit,
right?
And although it was healthy and unhealthy, because I was really technically I was running and training, but I was also running away from my problems and facing it head on. So I got into running and training. What I found is once you turn 35 in the U.S., you can compete on the world level for masters track and field. As a former decathlete in college, I tried the local basketball leagues and stuff like that just to kind of keep myself active. And I nothing, too much fighting and much arguing. And all
But
stuff
running
going on.
was where it's
But
at.
running was like, so I trained and went and competed in the World Championships.
Okay.
Win a gold medal for Team USA.
That's cool.
So, I'm feeling good, right?
Right.
I come home, I get back, coming back into Seattle. I can't wait. I've got my wife at home. I got my kids out. I can't wait to come with my gold medal.
Right.
I sit in the car and I'm just in tears. And not in tears of joy, but pain. Because it's not like I got paid to go do this.
Right.
I'm walking in the door with this gold medal and
But the wife's supporting the majority of the
she's
family.
supporting it. They were there waiting for me, and it wasn't really a big celebration, because she knew that I had been dedicating all my time to running, and it didn't really bring much to the table, So she was in pain through it, not knowing how to communicate. I'm in pain, not knowing how to communicate, and so our relationship completely just spun out of control.
So now there's the professional leg that's broken. There's the relationship leg that's broken. You have 2 boys at the time?
2 boys at the time.
2 boys that you need to be a dad for? How'd you do it? Like, what was next?
Yeah, so the next blessing that came was my wife left me for another man.
Okay.
She determined that she found someone that was a better fit for her. It would have been nice had she communicated that during our marriage. It just ultimately was not the case and wasn't meant to be. And as really hard as that was, it was a blessing, for her. So she found someone that she could be with, and it released me to go out and figure myself out. But the problem was, like many men who roll out of a divorce, who, number one, we weren't really in a solid relationship for years. And that not only as far as communication, connection, intimacy, sexually, like that just wasn't there. So the minute I'm out, I'm like, let's go. Let me go find someone else. And that's what I did. I went out and immediately found someone else. Didn't pause. Pause for a little bit, but not enough to really lock in on me and take care of me as a man, as a father, as someone who's trying to figure out my direction. Met a woman, same patterns, same habits show up for me. And I'm trying to figure myself out. I'm taking odds and ends jobs just to keep this new relationship going. We end up having a daughter together. Incredible blessing. Got my little girl out of it. And that relationship takes a horrible trajectory of just complete misalignment, just not a healthy relationship. And the true moment of change was I dropped my boys off with their mother, and it's a dark, rainy Seattle night, and I pull up to this hotel that's near where our drop-off was. And I just sat in the hotel and I'm like, I don't want to go home. I can't go home. What am I going to do right now? And just a myriad of thoughts came through my head as if maybe I just don't want to be around, period. And I know a lot of men have probably faced that at some point, or thoughts along those lines like, I am no good to anyone right now. And especially when I am so attached to the scoreboard of my life. Meaning,
but you're not scoring well on the board.
I'm not.
On that specific board.
Correct. And that my meaning and my purpose was attached to how much money I made. And I was being told that by those people I'm in relationships with, that when I was making money, they liked me. When I wasn't making money, what's wrong with you? Go get some money. You need to figure it out. So, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, just find a job.
Just find a job. So there was this thought of, okay, I am my money. I am my career. And I was just like, I was praying that someone right there in that moment was going to come and pull me out of that car and save me. And that's when I realized that no one's coming for me. And that the only person that can save me from this suffering, this pain, this darkness is myself.
Well, I'm glad you had that realization. I think at the beginning of this year and of last year, a famous dancer, I forgot his name, African-American gentleman, pulled up to a hotel.
Switch.
I think so.
Something like that.
Yeah, and ended his life, And he ostensibly had everything going for him that, you could possibly want,
Yeah. There's just that one element that we often forget, because as men, we want to perform, we want to produce, we want to provide for others, whether it be our partners, our children, our employees, our customers. The challenge is we forget about us. And I had forgotten about that. In order to be the father I wanted to be, I had to become it first. I had to love me first. In order to be the partner I wanted to be, I had to love me first. I didn't love me, so I couldn't love anybody else.
And it's interesting. I a few weeks ago interviewed Coach Tony Drake, who does personal development as well. And it's so important to create wins in the day first that focus on you, so you can go out and support the rest of your loved ones who you'd like to support. But nobody teaches you that in school.
No, not at all. Those little micro wins, they add up, and if you can stack them, you start to feel good about yourself.
Exactly.
But you're right. It was in the challenges, because the losses oftentimes are so big and heavy.
Of course.
The perceived losses are so big. I didn't land that sale today.
No,
man.
And I get it. I write a gratitude journal here. I almost write this every day, right?
Every
but I will
morning,
tell you this. When you're in the dumps, when you have no money coming in, you can be grateful for all the good things in life. If you can't eat, it's hard to feel true happiness if you can't function here, right? So it has to be not just gratitude, and it has to be more than your morning workout. you have to connect the dots. And I think that's where you had some really interesting insights about your inner alignment, right?
And to your point, a mentor one time told me, he says, in order for a lion to hunt, he's got to have his legs.
Mm-hmm.
And us men, we have to have our legs underneath us in order to go out and hunt, which means sometimes you got to take the job that you don't want to do, or you got to piece it together for the time being until you figure out that next step. And I struggled with that for a long time.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah. I liked you.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
So how did you, after that night pulling up to the hotel, how did you get yourself out of that to where you're at right now?
Yeah, so it really began my inner work of really, number one, getting to the truth. What is the truth about Cletus Coffey?
Right.
In 5 key areas: my psychology, my mindset, my emotional intelligence, my physiology, my body, taking care of me, which has always been something that's been of extreme importance and priority for me. In my relationships, my people. So what's the truth about my current relationship? What's the truth of my relationship with my children, my family, my extended family? My profits, so my money, what's the truth about where I'm at with that? And then purpose, my spiritual connection to a higher power that can be a teammate in this. And so I just kind of went through and did my truth behind all those, and man, is that painful and hard. I understand why a lot of men, including myself, avoid that for so long.
Sure.
Because when I look down and go, okay, I'm $40,000 in credit card debt. I don't have enough coming in to even cover the payments on those, let alone contributing to the household, helping my kids get to activities and those type of things. But I could see it. And the truth behind this, what was I avoiding? What was I pretending not to see in that? In my relationship, what was the truth behind it? I'm not happy. I'm struggling. It's emotionally and verbally abusive. Okay, those are things that aren't in alignment with me.
Yes.
And so I had to take those on and realize, okay, I don't like that. And if this person isn't able to support me in that, then it's just not a good fit.
Right.
So once I started getting my truth down, the truth will set you free. And it set me free to go out and take ownership and responsibility within that truth. And in doing that, I own it. I'm in that relationship, and it's toxic. It's not for me. I own it. I got to get myself out of that. I'm not contributing to financially, or I'm not making the money I want to be making. I own that. So I need to start taking steps towards recognizing that and owning that. And that's a hard process, but man, is it freeing. Because it gives us that vulnerability.
Sure.
The freedom to say, hey, look, I'm over here. I'm hurting. I need help. And that has freed me tremendously.
Okay. I love that. Figuring out your truth then brought you closer to being a corporate speaker. You've spoken to high schools first and spoken to athletes about your journey as an athlete and how to be better athletes. But you've also then switched, because high schools don't pay according to the pay scale you'd like to get paid. And so you flipped it and you started speaking to corporations on entrepreneurship, team building. How did you make that switch? I mean, how did you have the realization that you could do that?
Yeah, so the truth about it was, I've always been a presenter, a speaker, and in many roles that I've been in my career. And that's something that just comes natural to me, and I enjoy. It's kind of like being on the field in the bright lights. I get the butterflies, being on stage, the excitement of like, okay, this is like game day. So I said, okay, I'm going to go do this to the high schools, then to the colleges, mainly to sports teams, coaches, athletes. It just...
Did you just go door knock, or how did you...
Dude, I did so many free talks. I call high school and say, hey, let me just come talk to your team, to a team, a volleyball team.
Right.
Or I would do Rotaries or Chamber of Commerce's, just trying to cut my teeth, work on my craft.
Right.
And just anyone would give me a stage, I'll go and talk to. And but it also gave me some content that I could share. It gave me the
questions
process.
Probably that you could refine your talks. Yes.
Correct. Then they gave me the confidence to go to the corporation and say, hey, look, I've worked with this many teams, And corporate teams are a lot like, especially the corporate teams that I work with, generally are the executive leadership or the high performance teams, the sales teams.
Mm-hmm.
So they like sports, they like athletes, and
Full circle.
Yeah, it's full circle, man. I can talk to that.
Yes.
And what I was generally doing was going and talking about team culture. That's a buzzword for a lot of teams, right? We got to build team culture. We got to do a lot of rah-rah. What they have forgotten in that process is that there's individuals that are on that team that have their own challenges, their own fears, their desires, and they're not showing up authentically as themselves because they want to just make sure the managers are happy or that the team is happy, and that they're showing up as someone who they think they need to, that the team or the manager thinks that they need to be. Just like we show up in a relationship based on what we think the woman wants us to be. Not showing up as ourselves. And men specifically struggle with this mightily.
Interesting.
So
why do you say that? Like, that's just an interesting point. Why do you think men specifically struggle with this?
Yeah. So as men, we judge ourselves based on that scoreboard, and that scoreboard of how much money do I make, how much opportunities are come my way, how much my career status where it's at,
right?
And we judge ourselves by that. And when we don't have that, then we are in a position of trying to be someone that ultimately that we're not. So for example, I'm actually hosting a network event here next week. I remember as a network, when I started my first business, I go to networking events. I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any opportunities. I didn't have any partners. Instead of showing up and saying, hey, I'm not a very good business owner right now. I need some customers. I need some partnerships.
That's hard.
That's hard.
Especially
it's being vulnerable.
Yep.
It's showing that I'm weak. And so men struggle with people looking weak. Our ego gets in the way to protect us, to make us look like we're all put together when we're not. So I'm showing up going, I'm going to be who I think you want me to be, which is put together. I got my stuff handled.
Right.
Instead of asking for what I need and where I'm at. So we show up in our teams in that inauthentic way for fear that we're going to look weak. If we look weak, maybe we not get the promotion, or we're not going to be showing up in our sales conversations, being someone that we truly are not. And I tell you what, for someone like you, you and I met, and you wear your authenticity on your cuff, man. You show up as you. The first time I met you, you are who you are.
Thank you.
And and that is rare in this world of masculine men who isolate often. That's a rarity.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I feel like if I'm vulnerable and transparent, that just attracts my tribe, right? The reason why we're still sitting here 2 years, even though we don't live in San Diego and we haven't even seen each other in 2 years, is because the vibe was right? Like the honesty and integrity is right.
Yep.
And so yeah, I don't, if I'm not doing well, I reach out to my homies and I'm like, look, here's what it is. I may just need you to come down and sit on my couch and have a cup of coffee with me. Right.
And I tell you, you're in the minority. And I tell you, for me, I'm a man. Men oftentimes isolate. Entrepreneurs we are on an island most times.
Can be such a lonely journey.
And I'm a single father.
Right.
And it wasn't until
And that's isolating too.
It's isolating.
Because you're showing up at school, picking up the kids. And guess what? There's a group of moms that are hanging out.
Right.
And you're the persona non grata.
Right, exactly.
By default. Not always, but more often than not, right?
Yeah. And it frustrated me that I looked around and saw even my closest friends. I had 5 of my closest friends who were all single fathers. And other than us actually getting in conversation around, how's the ex today, we never talked about, man, how you doing?
Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah.
How you holding up? How you getting dinners when you're working your butt off? You're trying to build a business, trying to grow and network and get out, and you got to come home and cook the kids and get them to practice. And how you doing? I never did that. Nor did anyone do it to me, and that frustrated me.
I feel it, and I feel like nobody's teaching that.
Nobody's not. Thus, I saw that as a gap and an opportunity for me to be that teacher in this process. And that's led me to what I'm doing today, where I can work with men who are entrepreneur-minded, who are single fathers, we're a growing population, and there's no playbook.
And your meetup next week is around the topic here in San Diego,
It
right?
is, yeah.
Well, I'll sure be there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, I want to see what you're doing. So.
Yeah. And I'm just launching my first academy around it, and so.
Congratulations!
Be the
That's
torch.
huge.
Be the torch is the academy.
Be the torch, is the academy. When is this launching?
Yeah, so this launch. So we are going into October. So October 1.
Yeah.
Is when it launches. And we go in 90-day cycles. So we get a cohort that comes in of men, and we're working virtually. And then there's a whole framework and process that we go through. And it is not comfortable in the slightest. Because us as men need to get out of our comfort zone. We need to be challenged. So it is an uncomfortable process to get to the truth, to take ownership.
I think not just men. I think women need to be challenged too. Like us as human beings need to be challenged and get out of our comfort zone, because as we know, there's no progress made in your comfort zone, right? But it's great that you have that as a safe space, right? Like, because if you must be uncomfortable, at least there's comfort knowing that you have people who who are walking the same path as you, so you're not alone, right?
Exactly.
And that's huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it.
Well, give us maybe like one or two more nuggets about the Be the Torch Academy. And then I would also like to hear if there's anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap it up, Cletus.
Yeah, so, and thank you for the opportunity to share this, because it's...
Of course.
Look, at the end of the day, as men, we seek freedom.
Sure.
And it's that freedom that we're constantly chasing. And so much of it we think lives on the human dimension, that our freedom lies in making more money, having a six-pack abs, having sex every day. That is the freedom that we seek. When in fact the freedom really lies on that being dimension, right? Human being. The being dimension is lining into the true connection and consciousness and awareness of who I am, and my energy of who I am, and that's where happiness lies. That's where fulfillment lies. Making more money. It's like I used to work with athletes who, Olympic gold medalists, professional Major League Baseball players, and they're like, man, I got that Olympic medal and it went right into my sock drawer, and I just want to get back to training. And the freedom that we seek isn't going to lie on the scoreboard dimension, the human dimension. It's going to lie in us really getting connected to, what's the reason I'm here for? What's my purpose?
Right.
And because we're mission-driven men, we can then get ourselves on a course to pursue that purpose here in life. And purpose is a feeling, right? It's not a destination. It's something we accomplish. Sure. And that's the challenge that I see with men. They want to accomplish their purpose. Right. They want to accomplish things. That's a trap. So Be the Torch Academy is the trap that is the manifestation of the trap that I lived in, thinking that no one's going to come save me. So instead of trying to go achieve it, trying to accomplish something, I know there's a fire inside of me. And I know your viewers who are watching this have a fire inside them. Problem is, it's just a little candle. It's a little pilot light. And we have to become the person capable of achieving the things that you want. You got to become it first. So you want to be that entrepreneur, you want to be that influencer, you want to be the partner, the spouse that you want. You got to become it first. And then when your torch begins to grow, A, you can lead yourself out of the darkness that you're in. And then B, when you're standing in your power, you remember the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
Yeah, absolutely.
The final scene, B-Rabbit with Papa Doc, they're doing the final battle.
Right.
And B-Rabbit, who's played by Eminem, goes first.
Right.
And what does he do? He talks about himself. I'm the white trash. I got poor buddies. I'm the one that got beat up. I'm this. And he stood in his power.
Notification for 8.
Right. And Papa Doc, it was a mic drop moment. He couldn't respond. Because what is he going to say that Eminem hasn't already said?
Right, very self-deprecating.
And if men can stand in their power by being open and vulnerable and owning their shit, what is anyone going to say? That's power.
I feel that.
And if you are standing in your power and I'm standing in my power with our torches just blazing, there's a lot of innovation and creative things that we can do together. But if you're in your power and I'm sitting in my insecurities and Ace is better than me, Ace has got more money than me, we're not going to be able to co-create. That the feeling of lower frequency of anger and resentment and jealousy
100%
is going to take over. So this Be the Torch Academy is to getting men to stand in their power, to unlock that power, to light their torch, so they really can be unstoppable in all areas of life.
I love that, and I think it's much needed, brother. You know, I think there are a lot of men who just need more support, and I would say this from my personal observations: women are better at building social networks and having other women around them, not maybe even to be the most amazing support, but to have some support, right? And so I do think groups like yours or an academy like yours where you can build meaningful connections with other men under a little bit of guidance, that's huge. I love to hear that. I had a question because I do know like this audience will ask themselves that if I am that guy like Cletus like 15 years ago that is doing maybe a job that's unfulfilling, that's financially unfulfilling, is in a relationship that is tough and doesn't know how to get out, right? Before these people drive to a motel and go down the wrong turn, what would you say as the number 1 and 2 steps is something that somebody can do to climb out of that hole and to become, to feel better, to maybe get a better job, or to transition? Like, what are 1 or 2 steps people should take?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I'm so glad you asked that. And what I know is that the first thing that I wish I had done for myself is just have some self-compassion. And I didn't know I was going to get into a relationship that would turn out this way. I didn't know that by taking this job and it would end up the way it did. And just having some self-compassion in the present moment. If we can just be present and just have that compassion for ourselves, that's going to bring a lot of this pressure down from ourselves, because we're all caught up in stories, and stories about the past, stories about the future. And being in the present moment means we're not looking back at, because the reason why we look back in the past is because it allows us to feel something, even if it's pain. And so we're thinking about our past and all our failures and the situation I'm in with my relationship, because at least I'm able to feel something. However, the case being is that does not serve us in the present moment. It's just a story, like it's gone, it doesn't exist anymore. And then we project into the future of, gosh, I need to have this, or I want to have this, and when in fact, whatever the feeling is in the future that you want to have, freedom, fulfillment, happiness, joy, if we can just bring that feeling into the present moment, not worrying about how to get it, but just having that feeling in the present moment, we'll then start to align ourselves to that next step. So the self-compassion, letting go of the stories about the past and the future, being in the present moment, is a huge step in just calming the sense of anxiety and stress around what was, what could be, is a big point. And the second one, I'm a big fan, again, like I mentioned earlier, is just getting to the truth. What is the truth about your current situation? And because I've been in a relationship that I didn't know how to get out of. And I was stuck. And I was afraid to get out.
Right.
And that shame and that guilt that just layers on. If you're in that situation, man, just have some self-compassion first and foremost. And then you have to lock in on you and get into the truth about who you are, where you are in those 5 key elements of the personal culture is a great start to be honest with yourself so that you can take the next steps with some clarity and some intentionality behind it.
I feel it. Yeah. Thank you for diving into that. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, again, we had Cletus Coffey in the house with Be the Torch Academy. Brother, I thank you for having been here today. Thank you for making some time. I hope you guys got a kick out of that. We will link to the resources of Cletus's Academy. And if you want to state that, I don't know, do you have a website live yet, or is it all coming? If not, please share your social handles, wherever people can find you.
Yeah.
Follow you or connect with you. Just let us know real quick before
the best place, if you go to BeTheTorch.com/Academy waitlist, allows them to get on the wait list so that when the next cohort launches, they're the first to be notified. So it's BeTheTorch.com/Academy waitlist. I'm at Cletus Coffey, and Coffey is Coffey on all social channels, my YouTube, my Instagram, all that. And of course, cletuscoffey.com. You can find me there too.
Brother, thanks for having been here today.
I love you, man. So
Love you
grateful.
too.
Yep.
All right, thanks for tuning in today, and we will see you on the flip side. Peace.